The same people who will call this out will be like, we need to save Trump from getting prosecuted because, you know, it's a political campaign. And then here is, you know, somebody along that same tier of ideology saying, maybe I can use my political influence to like get you off the hook. It's a wonderful day in the homiehood, a wonderful day for a homie. Won't you be my homie to Taro? Oh yeah, what was going on with Danielle Smith?
The CBC's Jason Markusoff is following this story for us from Calgary and takes us through the allegations made against the premier.
Oh, this is quite extraordinary to hear a full conversation between Premier Danielle Smith and Artur Pawlowski, this Calgary pastor who was about to face a criminal trial on charges of mischief and other charges related to actions he took and comments he made at the Coutts border blockade. It's very rare that you will hear, or anytime you'll hear a premier speaking in this candid way to an individual facing criminal charges.
I always, whenever this guy speaks, I get the feeling that he has insomnia. like get rest.
From her own government, expressing sympathy with him, telling him that she brings up cases like this almost weekly. There has been, we have been reporting previously that the Premier's office has been making unusual frequency of an amount of entreaties and questions and pressure on Alberta justice officials with regards to these cases. Danielle Smith had said previously that she was going to grant amnesty for these cases because she's didn't believe in the COVID prosecutions, didn't believe in a lot of the COVID restrictions. In this tape, she acknowledges that she thought she had powers like the president in the U.S.
I thought I had powers with the president. What do you want me to do? I thought I had powers.
And acknowledge that she doesn't, and her powers are limited to actually interfere and squash these prosecutions. This has been a distinction that she has been making, that her staff and the Premier herself has not had conversations about these cases with officials with the Crown Prosecution Office. The individuals that she has had conversations with are at the the toppermost of the justice system, the Alberta Justice Minister, her Minister Tyler Shandro, and the Deputy Minister who runs the bureaucracy. CBC has heard from sources, as you reported, in January, that there was some direct conversations with prosecutors or people within the prosecution service.
Yeah, he looks so sad. I feel like he just needs rest. Like he just needs sleep. He looks like he's on his like 10th cup of coffee after staying up all night, you know?
But Danielle Smith and her aides have insisted that this is not the case.
I didn't even understand what the story was about, but luckily I have an article right here that we can read. So Danielle Smith asked prosecutors about COVID-19 infraction cases almost weekly. According to a recording, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith told a street preacher facing charges related to the Alberta-Montana border blockade and COVID-19 infractions that she asked prosecutors almost weekly about such cases, according to a recording of a phone call posted online. Okay, so can we please just get this phone call? What is her name again? Danielle Smith. Phone call. Let's just get the phone call. Why? It's so annoying that like you have to go to Twitter to get this like stuff, you know? It's like just link it. Just link it, Globe and Mail. I don't care about your article, okay? Like I want the juice. If it's been leaked online, then why not link it right here? You know, you're a direct source for the CSIS leaks. I just want to hear the phone conversation. I don't know where it is. Phone call online. I want the phone call. Okay, I can't find it. Chat, if anyone can find it, that would be really really nice. Okay, wait, there's another story here. Okay, this is from the National. Okay, we got it. 12 hours ago from the National. Arthur, nice to talk to you.
In a leaked recording of an 11-minute phone conversation, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith is heard talking to Artur Pawlowski just weeks
Artur Pawlowski.
before his criminal trial for pandemic-related charges.
I'm very sympathetic. I think this is very frustrating to me that here we find ourselves. Everybody has moved on.
So, like, if we're getting this right, this guy is basically like a domestic terrorist. Like, the video, which captured a telephone call earlier this year between Ms. Smith and Artur Pawlowski, a vocal critic of public health measures related to COVID, renewed allegations that the premier and her office attempted to interfere with pandemic-related prosecutions. You know, like, being critical of the COVID-19 measures is one thing, but what is concerning for me is the Alberta-Montana border blockade. Because that is essentially, like, let's face it, white supremacist domestic terrorism. Ms. Smith won the United Conservative Party leadership, yada, yada, yada. She's like a pandemic denier, which is scary that she has as much power as she does, and she's as vocal about it as she is. Once the process is underway, I can ask our prosecutors, is there a reasonable likelihood of conviction, and if it is in the public interest? Okay, Mr. Pawlowski was the first person to be charged under Alberta's Critical Infrastructure Defense Act.
From COVID, and we're dealing with a bunch of charges.
The pastor is charged with criminal mischief and a provincial offense in connection to last year's Coots border blockade. In the recording,
Danielle Smith consorting with white supremacists. Surprise Pikachu. We do specifically, you don't even need to type that out. We do have a surprise Pikachu emoji of our very own.
Smith is heard saying she does not have the power to pardon him, but she does have some reach.
I can ask our prosecutors, is there a reasonable likelihood of conviction? And is it in the public interest? And I assure you.
Is it in the public interest? Like, that is like what is like frustrating. You know, the same people who will call this out will be like, we need to save Trump from getting prosecuted because, you know, it's a political campaign. And then here is you know, somebody along that same tier of ideology saying, you know, maybe I can use my political influence to like get you off the hook.
I have asked them that almost weekly ever since I got started here.
In a statement,
So that's what she's been doing.
Smith says, "At no time have I spoken with anyone from the Alberta Crown Prosecution Service, nor to my knowledge have any of my office's staff." Smith says she has only spoken to the Attorney General and Deputy Attorney General about the case. CBC News has previously reported sources said the Premier and her office were constantly pushing Justice Department officials to intervene in COVID-related court cases, amounting to inappropriate pressure. Smith says any...
That is really weird, right? Like, there's supposed to be, you know, no political influence under the law. Whereas Danielle Smith, honestly, I think she's just a bit of a ditz about the whole thing, where she literally, in one of the other quotes, like, I thought I had the same powers as the president. Like, bruh, you're a Canadian politician. The word president should not like be in your mind when you're thinking about stuff like this.
communication was appropriate.
It's deeply, deeply concerning.
The NDP released video of the call. CBC News has obtained a full copy of the recorded conversation and has verified it. The opposition is renewing calls for...
So that's at 11 minutes, 2 seconds. Just link it.
...for an independent investigation into possible interference in the justice system.
Albertans deserve to know what happened, and Albertans deserve to be
let's go.
reassured
Get her.
that their justice system is independent of political interference.
We don't want political interference at any level. No politician should ever take this kind of call. It's surprising that the Premier did.
While
I love, like, their whole thing is like, hey, the Canadian government is conspiring in order to create these laws that are going to oppress you through this fake conspiracy of COVID-19. And then meanwhile, they like actively engage in conspiracy.
Smith may not have broken any law, this professor says it's about the ethics.
I mean, it's not acceptable. I guess it's a question of what are the political consequences.
And with just weeks until an election campaign, that political impact could be the biggest on undecided
damn.
voters, says this expert.
This is going to give them pause about her judgment. And that seems to be Danielle Smith's Achilles heel. She's smart, she's articulate, but she has a history in politics where sometimes she
Is she smart though?
shows poor judgment.
And Julia,
I think her whole thing is like poor judgment after poor judgment.
that election is coming up pretty fast. How do we expect the next few weeks to play out now?
So, Adrian, this particular issue has been following Danielle Smith around for the last few months, so don't expect it to be going away anytime soon. There's going to be focus on this as well as her overall fitness to be premier as we get closer and closer to that election, which is coming up in exactly 2 months from today.
All right, we got elections coming up. Elections are always exciting. Maybe we should find like a comrade from Alberta to talk to us about this upcoming election. So there's more here from Globe and Mail we can potentially explore. Once the ball is rolling, these Crown prosecutions seem to be very independent, and we can only ask 2 questions, as I mentioned, she said, casting doubt that the Justice Minister was driving this effort. But I've also raised it with the Deputy Minister and let him know my dissatisfaction with the tactics. So you can just leave this with me, and I will make that request one more time. I love how like she's like, I can only ask 2 questions, but I keep calling every week to ask them. It's like, okay. So Pulaski was a leader of the Independence Party of Alberta. A statement posted to the party's Twitter account said the preacher was focused on the narrow concerns of a minority of Albertans and not on Alberta sovereignty, so they cut ties. Pulaski has been a controversy figure in Calgary. His profile grew during the pandemic, as a lot of, white nationalists have during the pandemic. He led an anti-mask protest in Calgary that featured demonstrators holding tiki torches, which were associated with far-right white nationalist protests in Virginia several years later. Ms. Smith acknowledged in February that she had spoken with Mr. Pulaski, but has repeatedly denied doing anything improper. So basically he's using that exact same like Nazi imagery that we were getting out of Virginia in order to oppose wearing masks. That is the funny thing about white supremacist terrorists, is that they feel so comfortable being public figures that they're like, we don't even need to wear a mask or a hood for that matter. Prior to CBC publishing a story on Wednesday about the Pulaski video, Ms. Smith released a statement. The premier said the CB story was part of its campaign of defamatory attacks against her and her staff. It's like, we've got 11 minutes of raw footage of Elite's conversation, and then it's like, I can't believe they're running this defamatory campaign against me. It's like, well, anyone will be, assumingly, I don't know like where to find the link personally, but anyone can get this 11-minute footage eventually. At no time have I spoken with anyone from Alberta Crown prosecution, yada, yada, yada. NDP Justice, okay, we saw this. He said it is offside, inappropriate, and constitutes prima facie. What does this mean again? Is a Latin expression meaning at first sight or based on first impression. Okay. So yeah, like on its face is kind of an interpretation, I think. Interference in the justice system, said the premier or her staff were contacting prosecutors. Mr. Sabir and Ms. Smith and Justice Minister Tyler Chandro are unfit to serve in their roles. And, in case you were wondering, we are probably rooting against Danielle Smith. Like I haven't looked deep into the Alberta elections, but I'm going to assume here that the incumbent far right sympathizer in power is not someone who we're going to support on this channel. I know the NDP also in Alberta is also like quite conservative, so we might be supporting them from like a harm reduction point of view. But they're like the most conservative province in Canada that even the NDP is also quite conservative. So I guess this is great because you know what it does? It puts the Alberta election on my radar. And it's an opportunity to learn more about Alberta politics, which are weird and often hilarious. Why not make sure you don't miss the next video by liking, commenting, subscribing, and ringing the bell? Thank you so much for watching. It's my homie, too, Taro. Peace.